This is the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA, a weekly recap of your Eagles and news around the NFL. Broadcasting live from Chickies and Pete's, tonight's show is brought to you by Rob's Automotive and Collision, BCWSA, Chickies and Pete's, Begley, Carlin and Mandio Law Firm, Penworth Financial Services, Penn Community Bank, The Capitol Grill, and Ventresca's LTD. We now go live to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report, presented by BCWSA. Now, here are your hosts from Inside the Bird, Andrew DiCecco.
All right. You're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. We are broadcasting live from the glorious Chickies and Pete's in Warrington. And look, the Detroit Lions, they did the Eagles a solid on Sunday. They beat the Chicago Bears. Unfortunately for the Eagles, they weren't able to hold up their end of the bargain. They fall to the Washington Commanders 24-17. We'll start to break a little bit of that down, but we're going to primarily focus on on the Eagles and the 49ers. I'm Andrew DiCecco, Eagles beat reporter from InsideTheBirds.com. And joining me today, my buddy, my good friend, he's been covering the Eagles full-time for 15 years. You know him from reading his stuff on Eagles on Sports Illustrated. That would be the great Ed Kracz. Ed, what's happening today, Ed?
Thanks for that introduction, Andrew. I don't know how great I am, but I'll take the compliment. I'm doing great. Happy New Year out there to everybody. Let's go. Let's get this playoff game going Sunday at 4:30, right?
That's right. So the Eagles secure the number 3 seed, and they will be facing the San Francisco 49ers Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field at 4:30. Should be a phenomenal matchup, and we're going to get into plenty of that, Ed. But first of all, there's been so much discourse over really last week and after the game about the Eagles' decision to rest the starters. Now, I was of the belief that that was the right decision. I maintain that. You can't argue with the results. I mean, you're always going to look back and maybe have an issue with the results, but this is an Eagles team that has been really banged up all season long. And you look at it and you could zoom out for a moment and say they're really healthy because outside of safety Drew Makuba, all of their starters are available. But to that I would say just because a player isn't listed on the injury report doesn't mean that they aren't dealing with something to some extent. I look at the offensive line. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens. Lane Johnson has been dealing with the foot injury since the Lions game. On the defensive side, Jalen Phillips missed the game with an ankle injury. Nico Dean missed the game with the hamstring injury. Marcus Epps had the concussion. He didn't play. Jalen Carter did not play in that game with the hip injury. So I believe that, yes, it was just 1 week, but that built-in bye week I think really will serve the Eagles well.
Well, I'm surprised I agree with you there because it seems like a lot of people really thought the Eagles should have been full steam ahead for that 2 seed. But you have to remember that this is a marathon season. The Eagles started this season, I think it was July 23rd, with their first training camp practice, and here we are 5 months in. And they came in, by the way, on a short off-season after playing through early February in the Super Bowl. There was off-season surgeries for Landon, for Cam Jurgens. This was a banged-up team coming into the season, and it really never got fully healthy. I remember after the Washington game when they beat the Commanders late in the season, and Jordan Mailata saying afterward that, yeah, they could use the rest. That it is a banged-up line. And Mailata's one of those guys that has played every game this year, him and Tyler Steen. And I was kind of surprised to hear him admit that. And then when you talk to players coming out of the Buffalo game during that week, they all seemed to say, rest would benefit them. And, you couldn't control the fact that Detroit was going to beat the Bears, right? And even Nick Sirianni alluded to that. So being able to rest their starters going into what is now the second season, and if you're winning, you're going to be playing for another month, I think that rest will benefit them immensely. I really do, and I think it was the right call.
So let's get into quarterback Tanner McKee because there was a lot of intrigue going into this week about how Tanner McKee would perform, especially in a high-leverage situation where there was a lot at stake there for the Eagles. He completes 21 of 40 passes, and there were moments earlier in that game where I thought he did a nice job of moving the offense, keeping it on schedule. He threw within rhythm. I don't think it was any coincidence that his best moments happened when Devontae Smith was on the field. But what did you make of his performance? Because I thought later in that game they asked an awful lot out of him. rather than maybe just hand the ball off to Tank Bigsby, who was seeing some production there in the running game, and even Will Shipley, who just had one carry in the game. I thought that they put a lot on the shoulders of Tanner McKee.
Yeah, it's a good point that he did look pretty good when Devontae was in there. You know, he was playing with a bunch of backups, let's face it, but Tank Bigsby was having a very productive game, averaging close to 5 yards a carry, 16 carries, but they put it all on McKee's shoulders from early in the third quarter through the fourth quarter. McKee threw 14 straight passes. Bigsby had a 13-yard run with about 2 minutes to go in the third quarter and never saw the ball again. And the game was tied at that point. Now, I know they fell behind late in the fourth quarter. They were down 24-17 with about 2.5 to go. So, yeah, okay, you got to throw. But, look, Bigsby was picking up some chunks, and that might have helped keep that Commanders' defense off balance. So that's been a concern to me, Andrew, all year, is the way Kevin Patullo has called these games. He seems to abandon the run too quickly. And I thought he did it again on Sunday against the Commanders. But as far as McKee goes, you know, I thought he looked like a backup, playing with backups. You know, I was impressed with some of the throws he made, but his decision-making, you know, there was a 2nd and 1 play where he had about 5 yards of grass in front of him. He could have run the ball to pick up the first down. Instead, he threw it. Pass gets broken up. 3rd and 1, Bigsby gets stuffed for about a half a yard. So they have to punt. But, you know, in that situation, I think McKee should have ran and picked up the first down. So, you know, situationally, there's some things he needs to learn. And I would love to see him get a chance at some point with the starters because, like you mentioned, Devontae Smith, when he was on the field, McKee looked pretty good.
Yeah, and one player who we both mentioned already is Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby had 75 yards, scored another touchdown, has 2 on the season, finished the regular season with just over 300 yards. We could certainly make the argument that he deserved a much larger role in the offense. But I really, Ed, enjoy watching Tank Bigsby run the football. He runs with what I describe as desperation, almost like he refuses to take a loss, and he creates his own holes when there isn't something there. And there's just that urgency and just a knack for finding the crease, and he runs angry. And I think that that's something that I've really taken or have a newfound appreciation having watched him because it's very unorthodox the way he runs the football.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes that can get him in trouble. I think one of the knocks on Tank coming over from Jacksonville was his fumble. He fumbled the ball, and we haven't seen that, and that's a great thing. So, you know, he's improving, he's getting better in that part of the game. But you're right, the way he runs the ball is just so fun to watch. But I would point to a catch. He made one catch in the game for 31 yards, kind of a short throw over the middle, and he ducked underneath of a tackle and then picked up 31 yards running to open space down the sideline. So, you know, he's a threat in the pass game too, and it's good that he hasn't fumbled. You know, that gives you confidence in him. The coaches have confidence in him. And I think, listen, you're always going to be second fiddle to Saquon Barkley. You know, Barkley's a Hall of Fame player. But I think they probably should find a little bit more, you know, playing time for Tank Bigsby.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't think we'll see it. The playoffs are here. I think you go with your best players. Maybe you throw Bigsby in when Barkley needs a blow, something they've been doing. But, yeah, he's certainly an impressive backup to have on the team.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to my next point in that the Eagles, when they struggle offensively, there's always so much you can do. There's always so many buttons you can press, right?
Yeah.
But something that is in their control is maybe finding a way to get Tank Bigsby 4 to 6 carries a game as a change-up. I think he brings some energy and juice into the offense, and when you're trying to find some answers entering the postseason, that could be one that's right in front of you.
Yeah, and again, I think that ability to catch the football, I mean, that was Kenny Gainwell's role last year, was a very good catcher out of the backfield. I don't think the Eagles have that in Bigsby. I think he can catch the ball well. I don't think Barkley is consistent enough catching the football. And then Will Shipley, you know, he can catch the ball, but they don't seem to use him a lot. But it would be nice to see not only Bigsby get, like you said, 4 to 6 carries, but maybe throw him the ball a couple times too, especially after what he did against the Commanders with that really sweet move to pick up 31 yards.
And we talked to, I know you and I were there for Drew Kendall, but we talked to a couple of the young linemen who had a chance to play a pretty prominent role for the first time in their careers. And by and large, yes, there were moments that they would probably like to have back, but for their first NFL action, meaningful snaps, I thought they acquitted themselves pretty well. So with Drew Kendall, I remember asking him if his father, Pete Kendall, who was a first-round pick in 1996, played for 4 different teams, if he if his dad was there, had he heard from him. His dad was in attendance, and he was under the impression that he was going to be a little hard on him. But he said that he gave him some sound advice going into that game. And honestly, I thought he performed pretty well.
Yeah, that was a great question. I was there. We were talking to Drew. I think it was just you and me and maybe another person, but you're the one that pursued that line of questioning. I didn't even think of that, but it was cool that his dad was there. He talked to his dad. He said, listen, just go out. You're going to have butterflies on that first snap, but then once you hit somebody or somebody hits you, they go away and you're just playing football. And then he said afterward he was going to go see his dad, and he was a little worried that he's probably going to be hard on him. But, yeah, I thought, to your point, I thought the backup line played okay. That's a tough situation for backup linemen to come in. There's a lot going on, a lot of things you have to process pre-snap, and then you have to go out and execute your job. And I thought Kendall did pretty well in that role. I thought, Steen, of course, was the only starter on that line that played. Thought he did well. But, yeah, I thought Drew Kendall, I think the Eagles have their backup center. And, Cam Jurgens, the way he's been kind of banged up this year, you never know what could happen as far as, maybe Drew Kendall having to step in a little bit more, maybe in the playoffs or even through next year, 2026 season. But, yeah, I like the way he played. And they picked up yards on the ground. Bigsby had 75 yards, I think, and it was a good sign.
Yeah, and I think also something that helped Drew Kendall in that game was that he played alongside Brett Toth, and something I've observed a lot during the season being in the locker room is that there's Brett Toth maybe doesn't get the recognition from the outside, but what he does a really good job of is paying it forward to the younger linemen. And he's mentioned me before. He came up through the rich ancestry of playing with Jason Kelsey and Isaac Seumalo, Jason Peters, and he's sort of paying it forward to the younger linemen. He struck up a really close friendship with Drew Kendall. He talks to Jake Majors, Howland Pierce, and playing alongside him maybe helped Drew Kendall calm things down early in that game.
Yeah, they're right next to each other in the locker room, too. Their lockers are side by side, so it's kind of a natural thing to just pick each other's brain, to kind of lift Kendall up a little bit as a rookie. And listen, the Eagles linemen have done this throughout the last decade or so. Jason Peters tutors Jordan Mailata. Lane Johnson is always willing to help younger guys. I mean, the Eagles draft players that actually care about continuing the legacy that this offensive line has built through the years under Jeff Stoutland. So it is nice to see Brett Toth kind of, take those younger players, like you mentioned, Hollis Pierce, Drew Kendall, and some of the other ones under his wing.
Yeah, and very quickly before we turn the page from this game and focus more on the here and now, the cornerback situation. Keely Ringo, Jacorian Bennett, it was a mess. I believe that of the Eagles' 9 penalties, I think 6 were charged to the secondary. And to kind of zoom out, I think, and I hope, it maybe forces those on the outside or maybe those who have been critical of Adoree Jackson to maybe look at him with a little bit more appreciation considering the players behind him, and all of a sudden it doesn't look all that bad. I think Adoree Jackson has kind of done a nice job settling into that number 2 cornerback role.
Yeah, and let's think back to our early part of the season. Adoree Jackson struggled, and I think that's one of the big underrated storylines is he got better. He got more comfortable, like you said, in that role, what Vic Fangio expected from him. And now he's a guy you wonder, after watching some of these backups play, did the Eagles try to bring him back maybe on another 1-year deal because of what he's done? I'm not saying he'll be a starter next year, but he could be a valuable reserve, much the way Isaiah Rodgers was on this team last year. But if there's one thing I take away from this game, Andrew, it's that the secondary needs to be addressed heavily in the offseason. I mean, Keely Ringo, great kid, hard-working kid, still a very young player, 23 years old. I think he came into the league at 20 years old. But, boy, you just wonder if he's ever going to get it. It's a concern. And the players just panicked. Mac McWilliams, the rookie, got his first extended snap. He panicked. The ball's in the air. He pushes his guy down, PI in the end zone. They had 3 PIs in the end zone. Jacorian Bennett had 2, and Mac McWilliams had 1. So you can't have that, and that's one of the concerns I have going into the offseason, and I know we're not there yet. You hope you have another month of playoffs here, but you have to find adequate, competent backups to play behind Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell.
That's well said. And when we get back, we're going to talk injuries, and we're going to start to unpack the week that will be for you, me, than the Philadelphia Eagles as they prepare to take on the San Francisco 49ers. You're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com.
Hi, it's Pete from Chickie Pete's, the official sports bar of your world champion Philadelphia Eagles. Go where the players go. Come join us all season for Eagles pep rallies, watch parties, and the best in-game experience anywhere. Ice cold draft beer, world famous food, and fan-friendly fun for every Eagles game. Every Monday night in South Philly, the Jordan Mailata Show, presented by Miller Lite, followed by Chickie Pete's Players Lounge with a current player hosted by Ike Reese and Hugh Douglas. Go where the players go. Chickies and Pete's.
This is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. Every champion needs a good game plan. BCWSA and I want to make sure you have a game plan when it comes to conserving our most precious resource, water. Whether you're washing dishes, brushing your teeth, or watering your garden, there are ways you can save water and save money. Visit bcwsa.net for tips on conserving water. BCWSA, proven.
Your day-to-day life is hectic between having to pick up the kids, make dinner, the countless other tasks that you got to get done. Rob's Automotive and Collision is there to make your life a whole lot easier. Make sure you take advantage of their spacious waiting rooms, the large flat-screen TVs, complimentary coffee and muffins, and free Wi-Fi. So even when you do have to stop, Rob's is there to make you feel right at home. Give Rob's a call today at 215-826-9200 for any of your auto repair needs.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA. Once again, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Andrew DiCecco.
All right. You're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. I'm Andrew DiCecco alongside my buddy Ed Kracz, longtime Eagles beat reporter, and we are live from Chickies and Pete's in Warrington. Ed, I'll tell you what, when you look around the NFL and you see a lot of beat writers across the league start to focus on locker clean out and things like that, and we have another week to work and cover another postseason run. It's something that I certainly don't take for granted, and I have to imagine you've covered a lot of these, and you probably have a certain appreciation for it as well.
Well, absolutely. Listen, this is probably the greatest sustained success this organization has had in its long history. They've been in the playoffs now 8 out of the last 9 seasons, 5 straight under Nick Sirianni. I mean, that's awfully hard to do. We saw the Chiefs' run of postseasons come to an end. It happens eventually, so you have to enjoy these while you have them, and right now they're having quite a bit of success. 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years, 2 Super Bowl titles in the last 8 years, and here they are, back in the mix, back in the conversation again.
So before we get to the injuries, you and I were sort of talking off camera here, and since you've been covering the Eagles as long as you have, I believe 15 years full time, what playoff memory really sticks out to you in particular, for whatever reason?
Yeah, we did talk about this, and I have 2. And even though it's been 15 years, I was kind of like the backup guy, back in the early O's. And I remember the playoff game at the Vet, the final game at the Vet, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came in here. Had never won a game when the temperature would drop below 32 degrees, but yet it was below 32 degrees that day. The Eagles took a lead, and then they ended up losing to the Bucs to close down the Vet. So that was kind of a sad memory. Probably one of my more memorable memories, if you will, was when they won the NFC Championship game in 2017 against the Minnesota Vikings, whose fans came in here, kind of made a big deal, did the skull chant from the steps of the Art Museum, put their Minnesota Viking jersey on the Rocky statue there that sits at the bottom of the steps.
That's a no-no.
That's a no-no, and the Eagles made them pay. And I think the memorable play for me in that game is I know you're thinking flea flicker, right, to start the second half, which was kind of the dagger that similar to what we saw in the Super Bowl this past February when Jalen Hurts hit Devontae Smith to kind of put that game on ice in the Super Bowl. That was similar. But my most memorable play from that game is when Patrick Robinson had that pick six. Chris Long hits the Vikings quarterback, I think it was Case Keenum, hits his arm, and Robinson takes it at maybe the 40, 45-yard line and goes straight, turns right, cuts up the field, just a zigzag into the end zone. And that was one of the most loudest moments I've ever heard the Link, was after he returned that, because the Vikings had momentum. They had a lead at that point. And Robinson picks that ball off. I think it's 7-7 after that point. The place is going bananas, and then the Eagles just hit the gas from there and blew them out of the building.
Yeah, well, I have to imagine that was the loudest you can recall Lincoln Financial Field.
It was, and listen, a close second to me is back in, I guess it was the 2004 season, when the Link was still brand spanking new, basically, and the Atlanta Falcons, led by Mike Vick, come to town.
That's right.
And the Eagles beat them, and I was out on the field after the game. It's back when, media was allowed onto the field, and it was freezing cold. I forgot my jacket, but the outpouring of love from the fans, it was just all the noise landing on my head is what it felt like, and it kind of warmed me up. And I remember thinking at the time, like, it's no wonder it's so hard for players to want to retire from this game, because look at this outpouring of emotion and love from the fan base. And that's probably any fan base that gets to the Super Bowl. But I remember the place just being just a wall of noise for the players after the game as they're hugging each other, congratulating one another, and the fans all stayed. No matter how cold it was, the fans stayed in the stands and watched that whole celebration. And I was able to hear that and witness that, and that was exciting.
Man, that must have been a sight to behold. I was trying to picture it as you were illustrating it, but it's now time for this week's injury review, brought to you by the attorneys at Begley, Carlin, and Mandio. Contact them today for a free consultation at 215-806-3689. That's 215-806-3689. Injuries that you and I will be keeping an eye on this week for the Philadelphia Eagles. And these players did not play against the Commanders. They were ruled out on Friday. That's defensive tackle Jalen Carter with the hip, outside linebacker Jalen Phillips ankle, linebacker Nico Dean hamstring, right tackle Lane Johnson foot, safety Marcus Epps concussion, and tight end Dallas Goedert knee.
Yeah, I think Jalen Carter, he said it during the week leading up to that final Commanders game, that if this was the playoffs, he would be ready to go. So not too concerned about Jalen Carter. Marcus Epps, you never know how the concussion protocol plays out. He's really kind of helped solidify that back end after Andrew Makuba went out with a broken ankle in Week 12. He's played well, and if he can't play, then what are you looking at? Sidney Brown, Michael Carter, Brandon Johnson, rookie.
They just put him on the practice squad injured list, and I should also add, not to interrupt, that they signed Perry Nickerson to the practice squad. They brought him back and released Ambry Thomas, another defensive back. So those were your transactions from today, but
okay.
Continue.
Yeah, no, certainly if Marcus Epps can't play, that's going to be something that is going to really bear watching. And then, of course, Lane Johnson, he hasn't played. I think he's been out since maybe 7 straight games, I think he's missed.
Yeah.
I think he's a player that, had this been, a playoff type of game, he probably would have played, but he's expected to return to practice on Wednesday. We'll see how he looks. I think he's going to play. I think he'll be fine. And he's a vet, right? He's a 12, 13-year vet. He doesn't need a lot of time to get ready. We all know what Lane Johnson can do. Lane Johnson knows what he can do. And I would expect him to play, but certainly something to watch. And then Nico Dean. Vic Fangio talked to the reporters today and said that he expects Nico to play. And, again, I think that's an injury that they're just being cautious with. It wasn't that serious of a hamstring injury when it happened, but you never know with hamstrings. They could blow at any time. So they were just taking it easy with Nico. They didn't really need to win these games at the end. They were kind of locked in where they were. But I think Nico will play, but he's another one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and you look at Nico Dean and the impact that he's had, Ed, and last season I look at Cooper DeJean and the insertion of Cooper DeJean into that nickel role in replacement of Avonte Maddox and how that sort of transformed the defense. You can look at Jalen Phillips, certainly, for sort of qualifying and fulfilling that type of role. But Nico Dean, there's something to be said for him when he's in there. He is a physical force in the middle of that defense. He plays with such tenacity and energy that I feel radiates throughout the entire defense. You hear how teammates talk about him. I've mentioned this even last year. I believe he's the heartbeat of that defense. And when he's in there, he sets the tone from a physical standpoint that the 49ers and Christian McCaffrey are going to have to deal with.
You're right, and there's no doubt about that, and his leadership qualities are second to none. Nico talked about when he was out and the Eagles were, kind of scuffling along. He missed the first 7 games, I think, rehabbing the knee. He said one of his missions when he got back was to go out there and let his defense have fun again. Let's celebrate a big play together. And that's what he brings. He loves playing this game. He brings so much energy and passion, and he just kind of manifests itself to his teammates, and they feed off of that. And the defense started having fun again. You see them running into the end zone and celebrating a turnover, high-fiving one another after a big play that they make. So, that's Nicobe, and it's going to be interesting, Andrew, to see once this season ends, whenever it is, what they're going to do with Nico Dean. His contract is up, and we'll see. They have Jihad Campbell, who stepped in for Nicobe when he was out those 7 games, and then again against the Commanders, had 10 tackles, another phenomenal player. It's just going to be interesting beyond whatever lies ahead to see what they do with Nicobe.
Yeah, and even beyond the on-field contributions, which I understand that's what we're focusing on, he's so available after the game. Yeah. He'll stand there and talk for 30 minutes before and after he showers, answering the different waves of reporters. He does so much for the community. He's a really good humanitarian as well. So I think he's just an all-around, just a good person and a phenomenal football player.
Yeah, whenever Nicobe's at his locker, which is a couple times each week, you can just go up and talk to him about anything. The college game, how's Georgia doing, where he played, whatever you want to talk about, Nicobe's always willing to talk, and he'll address wave after wave of reporter after game, even after he didn't play well, like he did, the Bears game, that the Bears ran all over the Eagles, and Nicobe was on the field for that, but yet he answered, I guess, 3 different waves of questions.
The same ones sometimes.
Everybody asking the same questions, and Nicobe's always has time. So yeah, he's a good person off the field, and maybe the Eagles will take that into account when the contract situation comes up.
So for the 49ers, Ed, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall missed the game against the Seahawks with the knee and ankle, and left tackle Trent Williams missed the game as well with a hamstring. Now they claim that both players could have went if the game had been on Sunday, but we'll see how that progresses throughout the week. They're missing some key players in general on their injured reserve list. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. Nick Bosa is a top 5 edge rusher. You can make the argument in the NFL. Fred Warner is the top off-ball linebacker in the NFL. Huge losses for them. They also lost middle linebacker Tatum Bethune. That's another big loss. That's a recent one. And so they're really banged up there at linebacker. They also have players like D. Winters and Luke Gifford who are also injured. So it kind of reminds me a little bit about that Bears game on Black Friday where they were down to their 4th and 5th linebackers. I'm wondering whether or not the Eagles are going to be able to take advantage of that second level.
Well, hopefully they learned a lesson against the Bears because, the Bears were down their 3 starting linebackers and the 49ers are banged up there. Now, there was a report coming in. I don't know if you saw this. I'm assuming it's true, but the 49ers are going to sign Kaiser White.
That's right.
And Kaiser White could be on the field against his former team, the Eagles.
And Eric Kendricks they have, too, and he's been playing in the league forever.
That's right. So, how quickly those guys can get acclimated with the defense, or you just tell them to go out there and tackle whoever has the ball, we'll see. But the 49ers have brought in some reinforcements at that spot. We'll see how that works out, and if the Eagles can, like you said, take advantage of it, of some of that. It's not inexperience, but some of that newness that they're bringing in.
And because of that, I can't help but wonder if this will be a big game for Dallas Goedert. Now, we have to keep an eye on Goedert, who missed the game with the knee, so right. That's going to be something critical that we'll be keeping an eye on. But this feels like it could be a big Dallas Goedert game, maybe some play action, working the middle of the field, taking advantage of his ability after the catch to really set that tone from a physical standpoint.
Yeah, well, and listen, 11 touchdown passes this year sets the team record that had stood since 1965, so long time ago, before, a lot of people were born, not me, but others. But I don't remember when Pete Retzlaff did it in 1965. But you're right. I think Dallas Goedert, he's got the knee. We'll keep an eye on that. But listen, I'm of the opinion of this is win or go home. If you're a professional player and your arm's not hanging off or your foot's not pointing sideways, you're going to do everything you can to get out there and play. So I expect Goedert to be out there. Trent Williams, whoever else, Ricky Pearsall.
Right, Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, I expect both teams, unless, like I said, something really, really serious is wrong, they're going to give it a go and try to play on Sunday.
Absolutely. Good stuff there, Ed. When we get back, we're going to get to this week's Pentworth Financial Keys to the Game, and I'm sure we have many. But you're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. chickiepete.com. Be right back.
Hi, it's Pete from Chickie and Pete's. Bring your party to Chickie and Pete's. We can handle groups of all sizes at our locations across the Delaware Valley. Big parties, small parties, company parties, family parties, get-togethers with friends. Order off the menu or our special catering options. We can do it all, including coming to your home or office or special Play 2 party packages at our South Philly location. Book your party today. Hurry, the space is limited. Visit chickieandpete's.com for details. Chickie and Pete's is an official caterer of the Philadelphia Eagles Touchdown Club and a proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hey BCWSA customers, this is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. My friends at BCWSA are committed to providing us with safe, reliable water and sewer services. They operate state-of-the-art treatment facilities, provide clean drinking water, and make much-needed investments to protect our environment and ensure a sustainable future. Learn how BCWSA's investments help grow and serve our communities. Visit bcwsa.net. BCWSA, prove it.
Rob's Automotive and Collision Center in Lower Bucks County is a full-service repair center with competitive prices, top-of-the-line products, and the finest auto body and mechanical repair technicians anywhere. Rob's makes repairing your car easy. Same-day service guaranteed. Whether it's an oil change, state inspection, or a mechanical issue, Rob's will have you in and out and on your way. 2700 Veterans Highway in Bristol, 215-826-9200 for 24-hour emergency towing. Call 215-826-0250.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA. Once again, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Andrew DiCecco.
That's right. You're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. I'm Andrew DiCecco, seated to my left, longtime Eagles beat reporter Ed Kracz, my buddy, who covers the team for Eagles on Sports Illustrated. And Ed, before we start to get to our keys to the game, you and I have struck up a pretty close friendship over the past couple years. And, you know, when we go on the road to cover the games, I think of the time in Tampa or even the Super Bowl when we're out there at whatever those restaurants are that we go to in New Orleans. We've had a lot of fun, man. And I have to say, if I had a flat tire or something like that, you might be the first person on the beat that I would call. In fact, not might, you definitely would be. But just kind of jogging your memory over the years, what are some memorable road trips that you've experienced?
Yeah, well, listen, I don't want to undersell the dinner that we had in Ybor City.
This one here with the Columbia?
Yeah, there it is. Got the pen.
Yeah.
Terrific food. If you're ever in Ybor City or outside of Tampa, we highly recommend this restaurant. I don't know if we can say it on the air, but
Columbia restaurant.
Yeah, fantastic place.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a fun night. But one of my favorite probably road trip memories was I guess it was the day before the Super Bowl in Minnesota. You know, it really never stopped snowing that week out there in Minnesota. There was always flurries flying in the air, and it never got above 16 degrees, I don't think.
Jeez.
But the day before, me and a couple other writers, someone had rented a car, and we went up to St. Paul, and there was the Olympic Festival was going on because I think the Winter Olympics were coming in 2018. And they had they had a toboggan you could sit in, and they had the curling ice set up, 3 different ones, and you could just go up and try it. And I remember taking a knee, and one of the other writers, Marcus Hayes, from the Philadelphia Inquirer, is videoing me, and I pushed the rock down the track of ice, and it lands right in the center where it's supposed to. And the
what
woman,
a hoss.
Complete luck. I had never curled a day in my life. And the woman interviewer comes up to me, and she says, "Oh, my gosh, it's so great. Do you know what you did?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I put it in the middle of the ice." And she's like, "Yeah, but do you know what that's called?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I said, "Is it a condo or a house?" And I guess it's called the Eye or something, or maybe it's the house. I don't remember. But Marcus Hayes is laughing like crazy, and he's videoing the whole thing. And we had so much fun that day. Martin Frank, he was also with us, our friend Martin Frank from the Delaware Online website, but he was with us, and we went to try to go to Prince's house that day, and it was like $100 a person to get in, so we left, and we went to Lake Minnetonka. But we just had a great day in and around St. Paul the day before the Eagles beat the New England Patriots in that Super Bowl when Nick Foles came out. and was just lights out. And I remember going into the Mall of America where the media center was that week, and every day being greeted by two huge banners that hung. If you've ever been in the Mall of America, it's like 3 or 4 stories high, and there were 2 huge banners of Nick Foles and Tom Brady, and I'd look at it and say, there's no way Nick Foles is going to beat Tom Brady. This guy's the GOAT, and we have a backup who's caught fire, yes, but this is going to be a tough matchup. And then Foles goes out and does it and, delivers the first Super Bowl championship to Philadelphia, which, was, you always remember your first time, and I'll never forget that game or that weekend in Minnesota.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's time now for this week's Penworth Financial Keys to the Game. The key to your financial future is Penworth Financial. Call them today at 267-997-4503 or visit penworth.com. Okay, so I look at this game, Ed. Defensively, I don't have really any concerns about the Philadelphia Eagles being able to ward off Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, and that offense. From an offensive standpoint with the Eagles, it's fair to have questions because we haven't seen the offense be able to perform to the standard that they set. With Kevin Patullo, there's going to be a big spotlight on him this week. Is he going to be able to craft an offense that can take advantage of a defense in the 49ers that I would argue is sort of the most lackluster in this playoff field? It can't just be very predictable. You run a couple times, you take a deep shot. It could, because there have been many times this season where the offense has felt predictable, like we know what's coming. I would like to see some more optionality. Maybe see the Eagles build off of some of the different intricacies that we saw against the Chargers, even against the Raiders. There were some good things there, some more under center looks, some play action, and then sort of maybe try to marry that with what they did in that first Commanders game. I think that would be the best case scenario. Clearly, they're not going to be able to flip a switch and all of a sudden become this high-octane offense because there's been no demonstrated performance this season. But I certainly think that given the talent and, knowing the stakes and how high they are right now, they should be able to put together a game plan that can take advantage of it.
Yeah, well, the fact that we're still kind of talking about the offense here 5+ months into the season, not really knowing what to expect from it, to me is a big red flag. They should have had this thing worked out long before January 10th or whenever this game's going to be, January 11th, I guess it is. But here we are. And Patullo is going to have to figure out how to get it done, him and Nick Sirianni, both. You mentioned that it's a depleted 49ers defense. The Bears defense was depleted, and yet they couldn't take advantage of it. So hopefully they can take some lessons from that. To me, I think offensively it's imperative to get Jalen Hurts more involved in the run game to make the 49ers respect his legs. The Eagles have been hesitant to do that all season for whatever reason. Maybe it has to do with the fact that, Hurts is 27 years old now, doesn't look quite as fast when he gets to the edge. That happens. Now 22-year-old guys are chasing you and you're 27. You don't look as fast. But also I think the Eagles are a little hesitant to do that to try to keep Jalen Hurts healthy. Remember the past few seasons, he always gets hurt late in the year. So you could always get hurt inside the pocket, but then you increase your chances of getting hurt when you're running the ball. So now he's gotten through the regular season. It's one and done. I'd like to see them unleash Hurts a little bit more, maybe do a little more RPO stuff, and make the 49ers respect Jalen Hurts' legs a little bit more maybe than defenses have late in the season against the Eagles. So that, to me, to get this run game going, you have to put the fear of Hurts and his running ability back into the game plan.
What I would like to see Kevin Patullo do is, because there's been many times this season where the offense has gotten off to a slow start, 3-and-out punt, get Jalen Hurts some easy completions.
Yeah.
Whether that be some screens to Goddard, some throws over the middle, get A.J. Brown involved on those crossers, on those bang 8 routes, and it allows Jalen Hurts to settle into the flow of the game, because there's something to be said for when you get that first 3-and-out, you start to feel the pressure coming in. Now, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are better equipped to handle it than most teams and most head coach and quarterback in the NFL playoff field. But when you have an offense that's been sputtering all season, you would like to get off to a faster start. And I think there are certain ways that Kevin Patullo can help his quarterback out with those first scripted plays.
Yeah, great point. Get some easy first downs early. Get Jalen into more of a rhythm early. and get that run game going. This is a defense, the 49ers, that gave up 180 yards to the Seahawks in the fight for the number 1 seed. So listen, if the Seahawks can run for 180 with Kenneth Walker and
Zach Charbonnet,
I mean, why can't the Eagles bang out 150 at least with Barkley and possibly Bigsby? So, you have to factor that into, maybe Hurts can get 40 to 50 yards rushing, maybe more. But I think that's where you're going to have to win this game, is on the ground. And that's what worries me is, like I said earlier, I think Kevin Patullo seems to get away from the run a little too quickly. And I know penalties have factored into it, and they're behind the sticks, 2nd and 12, losing 2 yards. But throughout the course of a game, you have to continue to run the football.
Yeah, and so there's 2 players on the 49ers offense, and they are sort of devoid of having a plethora of playmakers on that side of the ball like the Eagles do. But you look at Christian McCaffrey, one of the best running backs in the league. He's been such a force as a receiver and a runner. And then you have George Kittle, who they just got back against the Seahawks, and he's someone that can make an impact, though the Eagles have done a really nice job against tight ends this season. But I look at Christian McCaffrey and his ability in space, and that's where I believe having someone, potentially like Nico Dean in the game is going to make a world of a difference versus someone maybe like a Jahad Campbell, because this is all new to him, and someone like a Kyle Shanahan will be able to take advantage. But being able to bring down Christian McCaffrey in space is going to be paramount for the Eagles to have some success and kind of try to put them behind the sticks early.
Yeah, and it's going to take more than just one person to bring Christian McCaffrey down. So they're going to have to get, as the old cliche goes, hats to the ball or helmets to the ball. You're going to have a gang tackle mentality to get Christian McCaffrey down before he can get started. I mean, this guy, he leads the team in rushing. I think he's got 1,200 yards rushing, 10 rushing touchdowns. He leads their team in receiving, close to 1,000 yards in receiving with another 7 touchdowns. I mean, this guy is legitimate. He's an all-pro player. And if you stop him or limit him, again, try to limit the yards after catch, the yards after contact, you have a shot to win. But that's easier said than done. Everybody knows you have to stop McCaffrey. That's hard to do. But the Eagles have the defense, I think, to do it. And like you said, if Nico Dean plays, I like his physicality. But, boy, Cooper DeJean is a fantastic tackler, too. And, we've seen him make plays on Derrick Henry. I remember, the big diesel getting the ball in open space, I think, in a game last year, and Cooper DeJean's all over him for a 3-yard loss. So that, maybe you put Cooper and you tell him, listen, wherever McCaffrey goes on the field, you follow and you get to him first, and then the rest of you guys follow up and hit McCaffrey too.
I mentioned this player earlier, but he certainly helped kickstart this Eagles pass rush because it's been a unit that has evolved throughout the season, and that's Jalen Phillips. His ability to set the edge with violence and authority, play the run, get after the quarterback. You see the length that he has, but it's also opened up opportunities for Jalix Hunt, who leads the Eagles in interceptions and sacks this season. It's incredible. 3 interceptions on the season. And then you have Nolan Smith, and from the interior, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Jomo. But for someone like Brock Purdy, who can maneuver the pocket a little bit, I think this is a really good opportunity for the Eagles to get after the quarterback, but also while staying disciplined in their rush lanes, because that's the only area where he can kind of hurt you. If you get too wide, like the Dallas Cowboys did week 1 against Jalen Hurts, that's the only thing that I could really see being able to kind of get that offense going from the 49ers with Brock Purdy with his legs.
Yeah, I think experience is such a big part of the postseason, especially at the quarterback position. We have a couple quarterbacks in this league that will be making their first playoff appearance. Brock Purdy is not one of them. He's played 6 playoff games. He's 4-2. He's played in a Super Bowl. I mean, this matchup between Hurts and Purdy is pretty fascinating, especially when you consider, I think, 12 of the quarterbacks in this tournament were first-round picks. The only 2 that weren't were Purdy and Hurts. Hurts in the 2nd round, obviously, and Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, in the 7th round. So, and they're matching up first weekend. All the other quarterbacks first-round picks, not Hurts, not Purdy. Jalen Phillips, you're right. He's brought juice. He's brought energy to this defense. Only has 2 sacks, but what you don't see on the stat sheet is his ability to affect the passer with his rush and open up lanes for other guys like Jalen Carter, perhaps, Marlo Ajomo, Jalix Hunt. He's just been tremendous. I saw a stat, I think Next Gen Stats had it, where he's tied for 4th for the most quarterback pressures since Week 10 with 41 of them, and he's tied with Myles Garrett, the all-time sack leader. So that's pretty impressive, and that's something that doesn't show up always on the stat sheet, but Jalen Phillips has helped this defense out tremendously.
Well, that's well said. It's important to bring that up, Ed, because for as good as the defense has been, where they've had sticking points this season, it's been when they're going up against mobile quarterbacks. But I thought they fared well against Josh Allen, and later in the season it seems like they got that rectified, but it's certainly something that they're going to have to be mindful of with a 49ers offense that, absent Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, don't have a ton there. But you're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. We're going to come back, wrap this up, and preview the upcoming playoff games this weekend. Coming right back.
Hi, it's Pete from Chickie Pete's. Come join us for happy hour weekdays from 4 to 6. Enjoy half-price orders of Chickie's wings, delicious pizzas, scrumptious hot, cold, or fried shrimp, jumbo soft pretzel with a trio of tasty dips, plus $3 domestic bottles, $6 Tito's, and $6 seltzers. Come join our happy hour weekdays 4 to 6. Come taste and enjoy. Only at Chickies and Pete's.
This is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. Every champion needs a good game plan. BCWSA and I want to make sure you have a game plan when it comes to conserving our most precious resource, water. Whether you're washing dishes, brushing your teeth, or watering your garden, there are ways you can save water and save money. Visit bcwsa.net for tips on conserving water. BCWSA, proven.
Your day-to-day life is hectic between having to pick up the kids, make dinner, the countless other tasks that you got to get done. Rob's Automotive and Collision is there to make your life a whole lot easier. Make sure you take advantage of their spacious waiting rooms, the large flat-screen TVs, complimentary coffee and muffins, and free Wi-Fi. So even when you do have to stop, Rob's is there to make you feel right at home. Give Rob's a call today at 215-826-9200 for any of your auto repair needs.
When an Eagles player gets hurt, the team takes care of him. When you get hurt, the attorneys at Begley, Carlin, and Mandio will take care of you. They understand that a severe accident can be a life-altering event. You need a reliable teammate to fight for you. The attorneys at Begley, Carlin, and Mandio will get you great results. And if there's no recovery, there's no fee. Contact them today at 215-750-0110 for a free consultation. 215-750-0110 for a reliable ally that's on your side.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA. Once again, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Andrew DiCecco.
Yes, indeed. You're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. I'm Andrew DiCecco alongside my buddy Ed Kracz, longtime Eagles beat reporter. You can read his work at Eagles on Sports Illustrated. I got that right, Ed?
Yeah, that's good job, Andrew.
Right.
Yeah, Eagles on SI. You can hit it at NFL.com/NFL/Eagles. I had to think of that, or you can just hit the links on the X platform, my Twitter at Kratze, Kracze. And now enough of the shameless plugs for me.
Oh, first of all, how are those wings, buddy?
Well, I hope I don't have any sauce on my.
Nah, you're good. I let you know.
The wings are phenomenal. Chickies and Pete's. They always do a great job with the wings. Of course, crab fries are legendary, but I'm trying to finish a plate of these wings in between segments, so I still have a few to go.
All right, yeah. Well, yep. This pizza, I get it every time, every week, man. Which is it gets me ready for the Penrose. But some really good matchups this weekend, Ed, from an NFC playoff picture. Let's start with the Rams and Panthers, and we'll save the Eagles 49ers for last.
Okay.
I look at this game. You never want to count a team out in the Carolina Panthers, but they backed their way in. They needed some help. And, I mean, Bryce Young's a young quarterback. Dave Canales is a young coach. They're going up against a juggernaut in Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, and, of course, that high-octane offense that they have it's hard for me to see a path where Carolina can make this interesting, but you never want to count a team out. But I look at this Rams offense with Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, and they have a bunch of tight ends that they involve in the passing game. The rushing attack with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. And it seems to me like this is going to be a game that you can kind of just go chalk here.
Well, you say you can never count a team out. Listen, I'm counting the Panthers out already. I don't think they have any business being in this field. 8-9. You have some teams with winning records sitting home. Maybe it's something the NFL revisits in the offseason to do something about that. But the only advantage Carolina might have, Andrew, is the fact that the Rams have to come east. And that's that's a little unsettling sometimes for these teams from the West coming east, playing in a different time zone. But the Rams have done that quite a bit. They're a playoff-tested team. They probably have the MVP of the league at quarterback, and Matt Stafford. It's just going to be really, really tough for the Carolina Panthers. And Bryce Young, who's one of those quarterbacks I mentioned, making his first NFL playoff start. It's going to be an uphill climb the whole way.
Now, to be clear, I'm with you. I expect the Rams to win this game, but based off of how everything went this season around the NFL, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to see something like that happen where there is a significant upset. But I think we're going to go chalk here. We both are in agreement that the Rams have this one. However, the game between the Packers and Bears I find to be particularly fascinating because it literally could go either way. I think both teams are relatively balanced. I like the Bears, but I don't know if they're quite ready yet. Caleb Williams, young quarterback. Ben Johnson has done a very nice job as a first-year head coach. They have some issues on defense, and I don't know if Caleb Williams is going to be able to meet the moment. You never really know that until they're thrust in the spotlight. We know that Jalen Hurts is adept at doing it. We know Matthew Stafford can do it. Brock Purdy has played in the Super Bowl. But Caleb Williams, I think this will be a really good measuring stick type of game for him to see where he is. If nothing else, it'll be good experience. Then on the Green Bay Packers side, I mean, losing Micah Parsons sucked all the wind out of their sails, it feels like to me. They have Jordan Love back, Matt LaFleur, but it seems like they're always a 7 seed in the postseason, and I don't quite know what to make of that team. So I kind of have this one as a toss-up.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's one of those division battles, kind of a border war type situation. Neither team likes each other much. It was kind of when the Eagles played the Commanders in the NFC Championship game, 2 NFC East teams. You really never know how they're going to turn out. Now, the Packers get a second crack at this. They should have beat the Bears in their most recent game in Chicago. They had the lead, and you never see onside kicks work, but, Romeo Doubs somehow, like Mr. Magoo, the kick, it looked like he didn't even see it. And the Bears recover and they end up winning the game. So this is a second crack for the Packers to go back and try to fix that mistake. But I just don't like their defense without Micah Parsons. I know Jordan Love has that playoff experience. They went to Dallas a couple years ago and hammered the Cowboys in the playoffs. Jordan Love led that slaughter that day. And Caleb Williams, you're right, first playoff start, another one of those quarterbacks making his first playoff start. And he's about to find out just how different it is in the playoffs. Everything matters. Every play matters. Everything's magnified. Everything goes a little bit faster, and he's going to have to slow things down and get in a rhythm to find a way to win this game. It's going to be a toss-up. You're right.
And if the Bears are able to pull it off and the Eagles take care of business, the Eagles will be going to Soldier Field, no?
Right. Well, if the Bears win, the Eagles will go to Soldier Field if the Eagles win. But if the Packers win, the Packers come to Lincoln Financial Field, right? As the 7th seed. The Rams would go to Seattle if the Rams win, and the Packers would come here if they beat the Bears. So all that angst about not playing your starters against the Commanders may not even come to fruition.
And
the Eagles could still get a home game.
And the Bears-Packers play before the Eagles. They play the day before. So we get to kind of watch that and see how that all plays out. Who's your pick from the AFC to go to the Super Bowl?
Well, who are you picking in that game, though, first, Andrew?
I'm picking Green Bay. We got time. Don't worry about it.
Okay, you're picking Green Bay?
I'm up to speed with the clock here.
All right, well, I'm going to go with Chicago. I think Chicago is going to find a way to hold serve at home, and it's going to be a tight one. But I think the Bears get it done. All
right, so you and I are on the opposite ends on that. That's all right.
Yes.
But who's your AFC pick for their representative in the Super Bowl?
Man, that's a tough one. You look at the playoff experience of the quarterbacks, and Josh Allen has it. You look around the field, Josh Allen's not seeing Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid staring back at him from the other side. So, that bodes well, I think, for Buffalo. A little question about that defense, though. I think the Jaguars might be a little undersold, and I think that's the matchup, right? Bills go to Jacksonville. the 6-3 game on Sunday.
Correct.
I think the winner of that game could be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl, to be honest with you. That might be a little outside the box because I don't want to discount the Broncos. That's a tough place to play, home field advantage. You're playing at altitude. You got to bring the oxygen tanks if you're the visitor.
Yeah.
And
Mile high.
And their defense is phenomenal. And at this point in the season, it's usually defenses that win championships. But again, Bo Nix, his second career start in the playoffs, maybe that's a little experience. Hard to pick against the Broncos, but there's just something about this Jags team and the way they're playing. And, of course, Josh Allen finally having a path without the Chiefs sitting in there waiting for him, finding a way to maybe get to the Super Bowl.
I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay,
to go
so
to
I'm
the Super
not
Bowl.
crazy.
No.
You agree?
No, I really like the way Trevor Lawrence is playing. He's playing like the quarterback they expected when they drafted him as high as they did. I think he went one, right?
He did. Yeah, right, he did.
He went one. I can't remember all these years back. But, yeah, I mean, their defense is playing well. I feel like they hit their stride at the right time. The AFC is wide open. Like you said, there's no Patrick Mahomes. There's no Kansas City Chiefs that are sort of like that roadblock. I don't know if the Bills have enough there from a defensive perspective to be able to get it done. And I think in a season the way that it's gone, the way that it's gone, I look at the Jaguars and I look at the Houston Texans. I'm leaning towards Jacksonville.
Wow. Yeah, at least the Jags have a home game. I think that's pretty important, to get to the Super Bowl. Tough to win 3 games on the road, which the Texans probably would have to do to get to the Super Bowl.
And they're young. They have a young team.
And they're young, but, boy, their defense, again, defense travels, defense comes to play. When you have a good defense, you have a shot. And those 2 teams, the Jags, Broncos, 3 teams, I should say, and the Texans have good defenses.
All right, Eddie the K, it is the moment of truth. Eagles, 49ers. I look at this game, and, look, the 49ers are making the trip back to the East. That's not going to be easy. They're depleted defensively. They're down to their bare bones at linebacker. Their secondary has some nice young pieces who I really like in safeties, Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa. Diamador Lenore is a tough, competitive corner, but I just don't know if they have enough to I know I'm saying this knowing the Eagles' offense hasn't given us a reason to have this kind of blind faith in them, but I do believe that Kevin Patullo, Jalen Hurts, and that offensive line in particular are going to find a way to get it done, be able to put up some points in this game and take advantage for what feels like could be the first time this season against a defense that's going to give you those opportunities. And then defensively, this feels like a unit that just embraces having that pressure on their shoulders. Jordan Davis may have said it best, we're going to let them figure it out, but we're going to hold it down until the offense figures it out. Instead of looking at it from a divisive standpoint, they're going to get after Brock Purdy. I think they're playing with a lot of confidence on the back end, not having to cover as long. I feel like the Eagles win this game, and I'm going to give the score of 24-16.
Wow, that's pretty good. I don't think the Eagles need to score 30 points to win this game. I think if they get it into the 20s, they're going to win. I love the way this defense matches up against the 49ers. I love the lead dog of that offense or that defense, Vic Fangio.
Oh, yeah.
Calling the shots. He's familiar with Kyle Shanahan's offenses. He's played against it a few times. It's been a long time. But I just like the way he has this defense rolling. Brock Purdy sometimes has a tendency to hold the ball a little bit longer while he scans the field. And if the Eagles put pressure on him, they can sack him. And, maybe they get to him 4 or 5 times, beat him up a little bit, make him a little bit more inaccurate as the game goes on. And I think the Eagles will score 20. I don't think the 49ers will. I'm going to call it 23-17 Birds.
Nice. I like that one.
All right, we're similar. You said 24-16.
Look, we're either going to look like geniuses or we're going to look not too bright.
Yeah,
but,
the genius thing rarely happens, let's face it.
But that was a lot of fun, man. I appreciate you joining me.
Yep, my pleasure. Anytime.
That's going to do it for the latest edition of the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. For Ed Kracz, I'm Andrew DiCecco. I'll catch you on the next one.
You're listening to 1490 WBCB and on your FM dial at 107.3 W297.